And then Bitter Lake is where I can actually go and kill everyone immediately afterwards. That was a great double answer. And then for Chuck, basically just said, yeah, there's a lot of great loot. A lot of people always drop there, so we can end the game early.
Well, we're getting into map 2 of Gili Island. Let's see if anyone else goes towards Echo Valley. Echo Valley's been a pain point for a lot of the teams that drop here because it's such a nice area. You've got the 3 warehouses, you've got a nice apartment complex and 2 small buildings there. You can see it on the map, but it's such a death trap because if 2 squads drop in Echo Valley, you're going to be there for quite some time. It's just one of the places where it's so hard to disengage because the circle around Echo Valley, the circle around Echo Valley is so open. It's so difficult for teams to actually drop there and start the fight so early on. So it's such a popular zone, but it's almost a double-edged sword. You can actually see a team is going to be dropping there later on. But again, the question that we just had, I believe, is going to be the same question that we have for this map here, Pyro. It should still be, what is your go-to loot zone on Gili Island? So let us know in the Facebook comments with the hashtag RGS.
You have a chance to win 188 diamonds over the next several games, of course. It looks like the teams have changed a little bit of where their favorite loot zones are, or at least their favorite drop zones, as we'll see a very different circle than we saw in game number 1. Look at this one, Fish. It is in the northwest quadrant, and it barely clips Bitter Lake. So this is going to be a really different kind of game.
Look at the difference as well. Immediately we get into game 2, and Pirate team are back at their loot spot. They're like, okay, what happened in game 1? That didn't work. Let's go straight back towards the exact spot that we're known for looting for 2 seasons now. The Observatory, Pirate team's resident loot spot. They're back there. They're going to look to try and loot up. You already have the first couple of kills coming out here, but they're just the stragglers, we like to say. You drop down. If someone's next to you, punch him. He's gone. Early 10 points. Doesn't mean too much for the teams to get the kills, but are devastating to the teams that lose players so early on. In fact, Fate getting so many frags against SEAL Team right now off the screen, but this is Small Boy against Aichi, who just drives away.
It's a good start for Fate. You know, they did place into the top 5 thanks to that dedicated med strat. You talked about how this is a team that really love to make that happen, and actually placing a little bit further down when it accounts for all the points that were picked up through frags, so a little bit past that. Excuse me on that one, but it will be a very quiet start overall. That is always the way of things. So despite the aberrations of a handful of early kills, you know, triple what we saw last time. Well, triple of 1 is only 3, so it's not actually as huge. And it's much more likely that we'll see the teams finding good spots to not only loot, but to actually hold out in the event that anyone kind of wanders into their path. And some teams chosen very different spots as before. You see over here, it's Bren Esports that were out by Massup Factory, and they've got the place completely to themselves.
Another team coming in from the Philippines, Bren Esports, a very large esports organization from the Philippines. They've always been in the grand finals. They're a very solid squad. They play the game well. They've just never been flashy enough to take it towards the top 5 of the grand finals. I would say if you took Bren Esports and they were on form for all 7 of today's matches, the best form that we've seen them in historically, they have a chance at winning. However, Bren Esports have been up and down when it comes to performance, even in the same day. One map, they look like gods. Nobody can shut them down. The next one, they falter at 15th place. And it comes back to the consistency. A lot of the top teams are in the top spot because of consistency. You never really see the high teams falter game after game after game. The only team that really did that was Pirate King at the start of the tournament, but they basically improved as they got towards the midway mark of the group stage and did really well during the latter half of the group stages. And then you have teams like NRX, who are consistently just the best. And that's ultimately what a lot of teams are striving for. But even if you're a team like Bren Esports, who can put out the best of the best performances once in a while, that's not good enough. Because if you pair that with getting dropped out very early into a map, you're just on average middle of the pack, which is not good enough to make it into the top 3.
Right. It is all about making sure you're consistent. That is why we see a lot of those teams adopting things like the med strat as a dedicated play, since it really enables you to be consistent on that way. But for teams that don't necessarily dedicate to doing that, or ones that can't always execute it perfectly, trying to play a little bit more of the standard play for the center of the circle, 4 members squad, execute where you can, but try to play a little bit back. That seems to be the game plan for a lot of these teams. However, if you can't do that on the consistent basis, you're not going to place very highly. So we'll see if Bren Esports really established that. This was a team that placed themselves 10th in the group stages, just outside the top 9 of our competing players, but they were the 3rd representatives coming from the Philippines, and so far they've shown up well today. There's only one game, one map out of 7.
Out of the 4 players that dropped very early on, one of the players was from NR Warriors, so they're not going to be too happy about
Kikapaji.
that. Kikapaji dropping very early on. It's really good to see that the strength of the Philippines region has increased holistically. It's not just all about NRX John, and you have to remember that this performance coming out from NR Warriors that we saw during the group stages is even better than what it looks like. I know that sounds difficult to comprehend, but put it this way. During the Regional Clash group stages, if you're from Thailand, you play against every single Thai team every single time you have a match. So the same thing goes for the Philippines. If you're from the Philippines and you're not from NRX, you're playing against NRX John 316 in every single map of the group stages. That can prove to be very difficult because we've seen completely different stories for the Thai teams as well as the Vietnamese teams when they're in groups against the Philippines and when they're in groups without the Philippines. Their performance is night and day. Against the Philippines, they're always dropping fairly low, and it's always NRX that take the top spot. When they're up against teams that don't, up in group phase matches where they don't have the Philippines, that's where you start to see the Thai teams and Vietnamese teams creep up to the top few positions. So with NR Warriors coming into the tournament with such high placing, 3rd overall, and you give them the fact that they've played against NRX John 316 in every single map that they played during the group stages, that's phenomenal. That's a lot of points that they would have taken otherwise if they had a 3rd less matches against NRX John 316. And that's not even the amount that the Thai and Vietnamese teams get. They get 2/3 less matches against the Philippine squads. And NR Warriors showing what they're made of. I know it can sound a bit disheartening for a lot of the other squads that have to play against the best of the best every single day, but it really has increased the performance of the Philippines region. Now the question is, can they translate that into an actual victory, into a proper placing in the grand finals?
That remaining to be seen, of course. We're still very early on in map number 2 here. Bombing zone, just on the east side of Massout Factory. Fury Road's unperturbed by that. And there are just a handful of these teams that are doing a very fast loot and go strategy, taking a truck. We saw Fnatic doing it on the opposite side of the road a moment ago. But since the map, since the circle will really center in this northwest quadrant, we'll see more teams kind of moving cross-map to make that happen. Here's WA-FFF, it's Delusion, the rest of the squad. This was a disappointing end, I think, for our only Indonesian representative, but early on they did all right. Neptune actually getting a kill pretty quickly in this game. So 5 players actually dropped down, a lot more than we were used to seeing. They're well on the opposite side of the map, though. These guys are down southbound near Safe Store, and they're relatively isolated because a lot of the teams will be going other ways.
WA-FFF have done very well, though. And when we got into the final day of group stage matches, the Indonesian region played their final day of competition. Historically, they've been the weakest region on par with Southeast Asia General, who only had 1 or 2 teams scraping into the competition. Last season was a good example. You had Fate, who got into the competition as one of the top 5 teams, but then you had War of Elite, who barely scraped into the competition. This time it's different. We've got AROV, who made their way into the competition. They were pretty strong and decisive in doing so. But it was WA-FFF who narrowly entered the competition. Yes, on their final day of play, they did very well. But it was still down to the final 5 maps. They had to put on a great performance. They had to play very well, and they did just that. And you keep that in mind with the context of the past season, where in the grand finals, WA-FFF were kind of written off. We said, you know what, this is a team that barely scraped in. Indonesia as a region have shown that they're the weakest region thus far in the competition, and they come in and they take a top 5 spot. They show that when it comes to the day itself, they were on form, they were ready to rumble and surprise and cause major upsets. So they've done it again here. The only team from Indonesia that has qualified, so unfortunately they're still one of the weakest regions we have, and they did qualify in a bottom few position, but WA-FFF have still shown that when it comes down to the wire, they know exactly what to do. It was case in point for last season's finals. Same thing happened on the final day of competition for Indonesia, where they had to put up a great performance, and they did just that. Now they have to do it again here in the grand finals. Game 1 was very devastating for WAFFF. Let's see if Game 2 changes for them.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes you have to put the flags down and just remember it doesn't necessarily matter what region the team comes from when they still have that potential to pop off and be clutch. Just because they come from a region that is statistically weaker or doesn't perform overall doesn't mean that they can't still take a squad fight and win it all the way. WAFFF, they have themselves a lot of talented players, and they are carrying kind of that mantle of their home country with them into this finals. We'll see if they are able to step it up. Turning our attention to a couple of the other squads, though, and as they get a little closer to the circle, a lot of different strategies. Some teams taking a run, some driving, some even swimming through the water to get where they want to go. Here, of course, is going to be our defending champions, NRX John 316, representing the Philippines, heading out towards Massout Factory. 6'9", the one in the lead with that monster truck. And this is another one of those places that NRX John just absolutely love. Look at this little house, isolated from a lot of areas, easy to see people coming from a mile away. Not only that, 6'9", I mean, the way he plays on rooftops is absolutely beautiful. You talked about his flick shot that got himself a 2K. That was something else. Nepter, meanwhile, is going to get dropped down by Rayong. There was a trap set in wait by Pirate Team. WAFFF, they're going to lose one already. Nepter's knocked down. Still, though, over the guardrail, not quite falling. Finally, Will Jackie manages to get him.
I don't know if they're going to continue to take this fight, though. WAFFF, they were split 1 and 3. So it's Nepter that gets the gun down right away. They did stop. So the rest of the squad did stop further down the road, looking to see if they could double back and try and take this fight against Pirate Team. I think they're going to disengage, though. I think they're going to basically cut their losses short, get back in the car and drive away.
Yeah, I saw WBS actually get downed as well, so they ran into a handful of other members. ECO actually found them. So this is a bit of a rough situation right now.
Another spot you want to be in as WAF. Just hyped them up as a team that can clutch, and ECO, they're on the prowl.
If there's ever a moment to clutch,
they're dropping in right beside this squad.
Yeah, there's going to be the car just losing members left and right, though. On the other side, WBS, he's going to get knocked down once again. Ezio decide to go straight for the throat, and Pirate Team still here from the canals. Rayong taking pot shots just on the outside of it. However, Ezio are losing a lot of members as well, so this is going to be an all-out brawl here, Fish. See, he's going to get dropped down in the crosshairs of Rayong right between the guardrails.
Still Delusion standing for WAF. He's in a one-on-one.
Oh, tried to turn the corner, couldn't quite make it. So that ought to be the squad elimination very soon. But Ezio Gaming, they buy that at a very high price. And I think Pirate Team will be the ones to swoop in and pick up the spoils.
Yeah, Ezio Gaming just lost 2. Rids is currently down. So Pirate Team, they could push here. And I suggest to do so. Look at that. Dropping players off. They're ready for the push.
Yep, this is going to be primetime territory for the Thai team making their way through here. As a couple of these teams really butted heads earlier, honestly, than we might have expected here only 13 minutes into this game. Mansum's going to get the run over on Justin Rids. Nice little hit-and-run play here for Pirate Team, and they're already off to a better start than we saw them last round.
And this gives us the perfect example to use. I'm not going to fault WAF here because, yes, they made some mistakes, but I don't think they made too many mistakes. The first mistake was driving so close towards the canals with the current meta. Remember previously we used to have explosive crossbows, we used to have insane health on trucks, means you can be very aggressive. The canals were very difficult to defend. Now that trucks' hit points have been halved and explosive crossbows have a 2-second detonation time, it's very easy to defend the canals. So Pirate Team were able to do just that.
Not to mention the RPG also makes it a little harder for teams that decide to stop and take a peek every now and again. But yes, the canals, great spot to defend these days for sure. So, and Pirate Team picking up the spoils.
I mean, Pirate Team defended well, but WAF, they drove too close to it. And again, they got taken out. Really good shots coming out from Pirate Team. You can't fault WAF for that. But the remaining squad members decided to get out of the car and see if they could pick a fight. In the middle of nowhere, behind only a shack, and it's not a really good place to defend. They don't have much territory, whereas the canals itself, there's so much space to work with, so much cover. They had the defender's advantage, so WF making the mistake of jumping out. ECO Gaming then see it as an opportunity to go, hey, there's a squad that just randomly jumped out, let's collapse on them. Which, in all honesty, was quite silly. Yes, aggressive, good move to make you want to pick up some points, but they did it really poorly. They dropped off way too far apart in really odd spots where there wasn't much cover to take. and they got picked off by WAF. It wasn't Pirate Team that got the first few downs, it was WAF, as Just Team just got eliminated as well in a big fight, I believe, against NRX. So WAF taking down 2 members of ECO, getting the 2 frags because of their poor drop-off position when they used the Jeep to get and to relocate to try and take the fight, and they got into a quick skirmish. Pirate Team were fantastic in the way they played around it. They held WAF down, they got a couple of kills from that, and then when they saw ECO Gaming sweep in, they're like, okay, let us wait. Let's see how many people they take down together, then we can swoop in and get the frags in itself. So less kills for Pirate Team. I think they only got 3 or 4, but they were still able to get the loot equivalent of 2 full squads. So they're ready to go. Pirate Team just have to position now. They don't need to go for any more loot. They've effectively looted for themselves, taken 2 full squads worth of loot. They're ready to rumble for the final play zone.
And they're in a great position to do it. They just need to make sure they can maintain. Switching our point of view up just a little bit here, we're going to take a look at Small Boy, the hero of AROV. I always have to keep an eye on this player if we want to see our squad from Malaysia perform well here. But looks like there's a bit of a fight between number 1 and Fury Roads on the west side of Mass Out Factory. This is, of course, still within the circle of play, just the border of it, really, but it's early on, doesn't hurt too much. It's going to be a very land-bound circle as we continue to scroll our way in. Fury Roads and Fire Roads, 2 teams that kind of got caught up in that really long, drawn-out fight the last time around. Our Vietnamese teams kind of almost having a bit of a civil war right at the end of it.
Just at the very end. A lot more skirmishes in the early game in comparison to game 1. That could be due to the circle difference. Even more fights coming out now that we're in the mid-game portion. 15 to 23 minutes where we get some of these squad-on-squad battles.
Ooh, Small Boy gets knocked down here. Yeah, this is Echo Valley. A lot of places to hold out, but not a lot of space for many teams. Lawpro's going to get caught in the sights of Mashiro here. AROV, all of a sudden in trouble. Grenade's going to get primed up for Mashiro. Knocks it right on through. That should be enough. Lawpro actually was able to crawl away from the danger, so it's just going to be another firecracker going up. Pirate King really showing their strength in this mid-game. Mashiro was the last remaining player from this squad in the previous round.
He did a good job. Mashiro was able to take down 2 of the members of NR Warriors as they sprinted into the final play zone. Good shooting coming out from him. They did get a few kills onto AROV. All of them getting taken down around Echo Valley. They still got 2 minutes to work with before the zone starts to collapse. They could hunt down the final few players. So Pirate King doing a really good job of breaching this compound against AROV. A bit surprised from AROV. Echo Valley is relatively simple to defend if you get towards the apartment side or the building side of the complex, but not inside the warehouses. There's only 2 choke points in the warehouses, very easy to breach, very easy to lob grenades or area of effect damage items like RPGs or crossbow explosive grenades in there. Very hard to defend. And on top of that, looking across from an open hill with a broken wall in between. When you're inside the warehouse, you can't really shoot your attackers until they're right at your doorstep. That's not what you want. From the compounds and the buildings, much easier to defend. So, poor position from AROV. They could have just been caught looting, but even then, nobody keeping watch, nobody watching out for players or vehicles coming in. So really good breach coming out from Pirate King. AROV need to tune that one a little bit. It's 2 maps in a row. They've lost so many members very early on.
Yeah, they were last place in the previous round as well. They're going to need to step it up a little bit. This is, of course, a representative from Malaysia, part of Southeast Asia General as a region. Let's see what they can do here. Iron Pro is going to be the one we're keeping our eyes on. He's actually posted up just behind some cover, but in the open, and with all the hunting that Pirate King are doing, you have to think this may just be a matter of time unless you can really get the drop on Pirate King. Not all of them, though, will be sniffing through the compound. You saw Mashiro actually leaving with Lion up for the high ground, a little bit closer towards Mass Out Factory. Since the circle will shrink in that general direction, makes a lot of sense not to stay too long in the loot zone. So they'll let it be for now.
19 minutes in, I think with all the early action we saw, we're not going to have too many more fights until 23 minutes in. Next zone is fairly open though. We're moving away from the compounds, getting towards the northwestern side of Bitter Lake, across the river, and just beyond Echo Valley, so more towards Mass Out Factory. There's a nice little vantage point you can get with the current circle, which one of the teams from North America, Rejects, the 3-time back-to-back champions, have shown us, but not sure if any of the Southeast Asian teams know of the boost.
I'll have to find out. Looks like Iron Pro is finally going to fall to Lion. That was the end of that extended fight. But meanwhile, Shibuya, who is kind of on point duty, runs straight into NRX John 316, our defending champions here in Southeast Asia. We talked about when they found this nice little homestead earlier on in the game and why it was such an important spot for them. And I think Shibuya is right not to try and take any more shots from there, because clearly they were going to be ready for him. Not enough members to really try and go for a breach, even if they wanted to. Checking in with Fnatic, though. Having a better round so far than last time. They were the first team that got eliminated from Thailand in the last round. A bit of a surprise from Fnatic. Second place coming into this tournament. But Vorax does get knocked down as they're in a fight with Fury Roads. The Da is actually going to go driving circle round a little bit here. Have to be careful. Trucks don't have that much hit points. So a bit of a mess.
Yeah. This game's just been completely unorthodox for Southeast Asia in general, right? I mean, we don't usually see these early fights. We don't usually see the type of skirmishes we're seeing now.
We've had it almost to kill a minute. I mean, that is insane amount of action to the start of it. And look at that. Fate and Seal in an all-out brawl, losing a lot of members. We see a couple of Fnatic players also getting involved in this fight here, but we're going to keep our eyes on Jan Fluke, who's on this high ground trying to sniff out Fury Roads. There's a lot. Fire Rose are in this, too, on the outskirts. This has the potential to be a multi-squad fight here at Mass Out Factory. This is one of those spots that we started seeing teams boost up to, by the way, but not the boost spot that we saw Rejects from North America employ that requires at least 3 players.
Yeah, it requires at least 3 players, and for every extra player after 2, you can get 1 person up onto the extra boost spot. So where John Flux is where you keep 2 players, and there's another spot to get another 2. No one's doing it, so we shouldn't talk about it too much. Zeldran's getting knocked down, but Esports losing a few players inside this next circle.
Yeah.
It's going to be everybody that's pushing out of Mass Out Factory that's in some danger. 15 seconds, the circle's going to close, and then we're not going to have many of the compounds left in this exact area.
Yeah, there are so many players right in the middle of Mass Out, and it's going to shrink down very shortly. Teams will have to get a little bit closer in. Together, Pow Pow going to get dropped down. Bren Esports losing huge as Jan Fluke and Majapagi combine to actually get some kills on their counterparts. The rest of Fury Roads making a break in here towards the western side of Mass Out. Down to 35. Fnatic. Jan Fluke's going to be priming that grenade for quite a while here. Doesn't actually manage to find enough damage onto Tina Pei, who's sitting comfortably behind the brick building. Slow and steady, but the action opens up pretty quickly. The Da is going to get dropped down by Aichi as Fury Roads managed to make inroads here. Hello, making a run for it. CT going to sniff around the side, but he's isolated from the rest of the team. And he should get dropped down. Gets the outplay, though, before it happens. Manages to get one more frag for Fnatic.
That's a scrappy fight inside Mass Out Factory. Every single team that made their way into the zone had the exact same idea. Let's take refuge inside the area of the zone that has multiple compounds. Because every single team was doing it, everyone was there, and it just led to a big fight. Now we're in towards the open part of Mass Out Factory. No cover, just an open environment, a couple of heals and Deathledge, and NR Warriors getting eliminated.
Yeah, NR Warriors are out of this one. So are Fury Roads right now, so we're going to start seeing different teams really step up towards the end of this match. Number one of our Thai teams we're going to be watching on the edge of our screen as Zeus from Fire Rose actually taking cover inside of this shack, but he's isolated, which means if number one actually see him, he could be in some trouble. He's on the edge of the play zone as well, and it really does shrink down. It will be the road just to the southeast of Mass Out Factory where the final play takes place.
Open environment once again, just like the final zone. We do have a couple of teams that are inside this time around. You can see number one have made their way in. Pirate team are here too. NRX creeping into the zone as well. But Shibuya, Mashiro, everybody's still inside the zone, ready to fight. Just like we saw in the last one. It was this team that got knocked down very late into the final zone.
Still, though, a lot of our big players left up. Like an AA just heals up after taking a little extra bit of damage. That's the zone looking like. NRX are just such masters of avoiding detection early on, but that's not who we're going to talk about right now as we turn our attention back to the factory. Neko is going to get dropped down by Doi. 6'9", he gets dropped down outside. That is, of course, still environmental damage. Everyone has to make a break for Mass Out right now. We're towards the edge of it. Zeus, Yada. Oh, they're both down here. It looks like Fate's still in this one. Nemesis is going to grab Zeus, so Fury Road's already going to get killed. Fate finding Joy, and he's going to get the down!
Nico does get killed for it, but DaveJan stays alive.
This is pretty huge right now for DaveJan from Fate, seeing if
zone,
his team can actually make it happen. He's starting to take damage from the zone. Here comes Feta driving through, and it's going to be a hit and run, but more like hit and explosion. Feta going to get dropped down to his knees as Nemesis comes back around the side. We're down to 15 players.
Pushing on through. Number one still have all 4 players up. Mashiro trying to revive a couple of players that were knocked down. You can see DaveJan still outside, just trying to heal through the zone.
Still members of Pirate King left up. This is Shibuya we're watching on the side. Along with
no,
Lion.
DaveJan.
All 4 members of them are actually still up here.
They missed him. He just sprinted across the zone, running the openers. A couple of players were looking his way, but no one spots DaveJan out. He's going to be able to sneak his way in.
Yeah, Nemesis trying to take a bit of cover behind that tree here. He will manage to avoid being downed. Here's DaveJan still from Fate, still alive.
Just stealing kills.
13 players left, and one of them is from Fate. The Kiss is going to get dropped down. He's going to be killed by Maki. Shibuya is going to get Feta, and the meanwhile, Mashiro still taking a lot of fire, and it looks like DaveJan still staying up, manages to find Shibuya. Fate are getting kills on kills.
Hang on. He's turned this to a one-on-one. It's just Mac 4 against DaveJan. He found him!
And it's going to be Mac 4 taken out. DaveJan, how great is this for Fate right now, Fish? The Singaporean team with 1 clutch player.
He's got 7 kills. There were 7 left. This is play zone 7 as well. 7-7-7. My goodness, DaveJan.
What a heavenly result for sure. DaveJan trying to make it all the way to the end here. 26.5 minutes. This is a lightning fast round by Southeast Asian standards. We're in the final play zone here. DaveJan's going to have to make a run for it, but how far can he get? Ducks behind the tree. It's going to be Yanfluk who finds him down.
This has been the upset on upsets on upsets. Yanfluk able to find that kill onto DaveJan, not watching his back. Players coming in from outside the zone. Little did he know that there was nobody left in the final zone. That was for Fate to take. Unfortunately, knowledge is key. Yanfluk sneaks in, and just before he gets behind the tree as well. Imagine that, going 1-on-2, and I don't mean 2 players left, 2 full squads, killing most of them, and then dying to someone coming outside the circle. Fnatic need to count their lucky stars as well, because that was insane.
And they needed it too because of how poorly Fnatic placed in round number 1. What a recovery and what a play by Yanfluk here to end this one. Many Medstrat are still up. You say 3. If anyone else has the brilliant idea to head into the zone, they can maybe surprise him, but I think you can't really kid a kidder. It looks like this is going to be a down to the final 3. And yeah, it'll go Fnatic for round 2.
We saw AROV also just drop, so they're going to take 4th. So Fate 5th, AROV 4th. I think Fate will be kicking themselves a little bit because that's a lot of kills they picked up. But
yeah.
5th place again's not too pretty.
Well, they should start to pick up a little bit from those 7 frags. We'll see if it's going to be enough to really propel them a little further up. But yeah, as you mentioned, it was looking good for a bit, but flash in the pan, or maybe not. Here we go. Yanfluk's going to have some fun unloading the rest of his weapon.
Number 1 take the 3rd place spot. Now it's just the final team left outside the zone. It's going to be Pirate Team that takes 2nd place.
Yeah, okay, that's pretty solid after Pirate Team.
3 tie squads in the top 3, not bad.
Yeah, got to give him some credit there. So that's recovery from game 1. Roger's going to go out in style here to end the round. Congratulations to Fnatic for their win in round 2 here. Yanfluk with an incredible flanking play to come from outside the zone and really surprise the last remaining member of Fate. DaveJan, though, had a great end to that round. Got to give him some credit.
I mean, yes, he did.
You just got to get it over the line.
I don't think I can actually fault Fate whatsoever in that final bit of play. I think they did everything they possibly could until the final few seconds, and then it was just a complete upset. Imagine if he moved a second early. He had no idea that he was the last person in that zone. He must have seen the footsteps. Something must have alerted him that Fnatic were creeping in behind, and that single fantastic shot's enough.
And it's a Jolly Roger to dance it off to the end, where Fnatic will finally make it official with the final player standing. And there it is, 3 tie teams in the top 3, followed closely, of course, by AROV, thanks to the incredible efforts of their Medstrat team. And I think the biggest surprise there was that Small Boy gets dropped down early, but it was Boyka that ended up staying alive to the end.
1 kill coming out for AROV. Fate